Dr. Hyun-woo Kim rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the computer screen. The numbers dancing across the display made no sense. For 3 days straight, the same strange pattern kept appearing in the deep space monitoring equipment. He worked at Luna 7, a research station built on the dark side of Earth's moon. His job was to listen for signals from space, hoping to find proof that humans were not alone in the universe. Most days brought nothing but empty static and the occasional burst from a distant star. But this week was different. Something was trying to talk to them. Hyun-woo pushed back from his desk and walked to the coffee machine. The station was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and air recyclers. Only 12 people worked at Luna 7, and most of them were sleeping during the night shift. He liked the peaceful hours when he could focus on his work without interruptions. The strange signal had started on Monday morning. At first it looked like background noise from deep space. Radio telescopes picked up all kinds of random signals from stars, planets, and cosmic events. Hyun-woo almost deleted it from the system. But something made him take a closer look. The pattern was too perfect to be natural. Numbers appeared in mathematical sequences that followed rules. Prime numbers came first, then squares, then something that looked like physics equations. Someone or something was definitely sending a message. Hyun-woo called his team leader, Dr. Yoon-ji Lee. She was the smartest person he knew when it came to languages and codes. If anyone could figure out what the signal meant, it would be her. Yoon-ji, you need to see this, Hyun-woo said into his phone. I think we found something big. Dr. Lee arrived at the station 2 hours later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her specialty was finding patterns in chaos, whether it was ancient human languages or alien mathematics. Show me what you found, she said, pulling up a chair next to Hyun-woo's workstation. He pointed to the screen where waves of data scrolled past. It started 3 days ago. The signal comes from way outside our galaxy, somewhere beyond the edge of space we can normally see. But look at these patterns. Yoon-ji studied the numbers for several minutes. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as she ran different analysis programs. Slowly, her eyes grew wide. This is not random, she whispered. Someone is definitely trying to communicate. These numbers are coordinates in three-dimensional space. And this section here looks like a countdown. Countdown to what? Hyun-woo asked. I don't know yet, but whoever sent this message knows advanced mathematics. They understand how we think about numbers and space. This is definitely from an intelligent source. The two scientists worked through the night, trying to decode more of the signal. As the hours passed, they discovered layers of meaning hidden in the transmission. The aliens, if that's what they were, had built their message very carefully. They started with simple math that any intelligent species would understand, then moved to more complex ideas. By morning, they had translated part of the message. The results sent chills down their spines. The signal was a call for help. We are the Alliance of Peaceful Worlds, Yoon-ji read from her translation. Our civilizations face extinction. An enemy destroys everything in its path. We have detected your recent advancement into space technology. Your species shows promise. We believe you may possess qualities that could help us survive. Please, respond if you receive this message. Hyun-woo stared at the words on the screen. They want our help, but we've barely started exploring our own solar system. What could we possibly do against an enemy that threatens entire galaxies? Before Yoon-ji could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the station. The main communication system activated, and Commander So-young Park's voice filled the room. She was the military officer in charge of Luna 7's security. All personnel report to the main briefing room immediately. We have a code red situation. Hyun-woo and Yoon-ji exchanged worried looks. A code red meant potential threat to Earth's security. They grabbed their data tablets and hurried to the briefing room. Commander Park was a tough woman who had served in Earth's Space Defense Forces for 20 years. She stood at attention as the station crew filed into the small conference room. Her expression was serious and concerned. At 600 hours this morning, our deep space sensors detected multiple objects entering the outer edge of our solar system, she announced. The objects appear to be artificial constructs, possibly spacecraft. They are moving at speeds that should be impossible according to our current understanding of physics. Hyunwoo felt his heart racing. Commander, we may have an explanation for what you're seeing. We've been tracking an alien signal for the past 3 days. Park's eyes narrowed. Explain. Yoonji stepped forward with her data tablet. We've decoded part of a message from beyond our galaxy. It's a distress call from something called the Alliance of Peaceful Worlds. They claim to be under attack by a hostile force. And you think these objects in our solar system are connected to this message? Park asked. It's possible, Hyunwoo said. The timing is too much of a coincidence. The signal has been getting stronger each day, and now we have unidentified spacecraft approaching Earth. Commander Park was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the data on Yoonji's tablet, then back at her own sensor readings. I need to contact Earth Command immediately, she said. If we're about to make first contact with alien civilizations, this is way beyond what Luna 7 can handle alone. Over the next 6 hours, Luna 7 became the center of the most important moment in human history. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials joined emergency video conferences. The alien signal was analyzed by teams around the world. The approaching spacecraft were tracked by every telescope and radar system humanity could aim at them. By evening, the truth became clear. The objects were not weapons or invasion ships. They were massive refugee vessels, damaged and barely functional. The aliens had traveled across impossible distances to reach Earth, following their own distress signal. As night fell over Luna 7, Hyunwoo stood at the observation window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were fighting for survival, and somehow they had chosen to ask humanity for help. Do you think we'll answer their call? Yoonji asked, joining him at the window. Hyunwoo thought about everything they had learned in the past few days. The aliens were refugees running from something terrible. They had crossed the void between galaxies just to ask for help from a species they had never met. Yes, he said quietly. I think we will. It's what humans do when someone calls for help. Neither of them knew that their decision to decode the alien signal had just changed the course of human history forever. President Jinho Choi stood at the window of his office in Geneva, watching the sunrise paint the Alps in golden light. In 3 hours, he would address the most important gathering in human history. Representatives from every nation on Earth had come to decide humanity's response to the alien distress call. The past week had changed everything. After Dr. Hyunwoo Kim and his team decoded the alien message, the world had erupted in debates, protests, and emergency meetings. Some people wanted to welcome the aliens with open arms. Others demanded that Earth remain hidden and silent. Jinho had barely slept since the discovery. As President of the United Nations, the weight of humanity's future rested on his shoulders. Whatever decision they made today would echo through history forever. His assistant knocked on the door. Mr. President, the delegates are ready for your address. Jinho straightened his tie and walked toward the assembly hall. The massive room buzzed with nervous energy. 500 delegates filled the seats representing every country, religion, and political view on Earth. Cameras broadcast the meeting to billions of people watching around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Jinho began, his voice steady despite the pressure. We gather today not as separate nations, but as one human race facing our first contact with alien civilizations. The room fell silent. Every eye focused on the president as he continued. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim will present the latest analysis of the alien signal. Then Captain Tae Min-yoon will explain the military implications of our decision. Finally, we will vote on how humanity responds to this call for help. Doctor. Kim stepped to the podium, looking nervous but determined. He had spent the last week becoming the world's leading expert on alien communication. His presentation screen showed the decoded message in multiple languages. The aliens call themselves the Alliance of Peaceful Worlds, Kim explained. Our translation shows they represent dozens of different species who have worked together for thousands of years. They are refugees fleeing from something they call the Devourers. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The name sent chills through everyone who heard it. According to their message, the Devourers have destroyed hundreds of worlds, Kim continued. They consume everything in their path, growing stronger with each civilization they destroy. The Alliance has been fighting them for centuries, but they are losing. A delegate from Russia raised her hand. Dr. Kim, why would these aliens think we can help them? Humanity has barely traveled to our own moon. Kim nodded. That's the most interesting part of their message. They say they detected our recent technological advancement, particularly our development of quantum communication and fusion energy. But more importantly, they believe humans possess something unique that could help them survive. What kind of something? Asked the delegate from Brazil. They don't specify, Kim admitted, but their message suggests they've studied our species from a distance. They seem to think we have qualities that their own civilizations lack. President Jin Ho thanked Dr. Kim and called Captain Tae-min Yoon to the podium. Yoon was the commander of Earth's most advanced spacecraft, the Indomitable. His military record was impressive, but even he looked overwhelmed by the current situation. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, Yoon began. I've reviewed the technical data from the alien refugee ships. These vessels are damaged and barely functional, but their technology is centuries ahead of ours. The aliens have traveled impossible distances to reach Earth. Captain Yoon activated a holographic display showing the solar system. Red dots mark the positions of the alien ships now holding position just beyond Mars. The good news is these appear to be civilian vessels, not warships, Yoon explained. Our sensors detect millions of life forms aboard the ships. Mostly families and non-combatants. They pose no immediate threat to Earth. The delegate from China spoke up. But what about these devourers? If we help the refugees, won't that bring their enemies to our doorstep? Yoon's expression grew grim. Sir, according to the alien data, the devourers are already headed in our direction. Their expansion pattern shows they consume everything in their path. Whether we help the Alliance or not, we will eventually face this threat. Shocked voices filled the assembly hall. President Jin Ho called for order as delegates shouted questions and concerns. You're saying we're going to be attacked regardless? Demanded the delegate from Germany. Yes, Yoon replied honestly. The difference is whether we face this enemy alone or with allies who have been fighting them for centuries. The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Some delegates argued that Earth should remain hidden, hoping the devourers would pass by without noticing humanity. Others insisted that helping the refugees was a moral duty, regardless of the risks. The delegate from Kenya stood and addressed the assembly. My ancestors have a saying, when someone calls for help, you answer. It doesn't matter if they're a stranger or if helping them is dangerous. You answer because it's the right thing to do. But what if answering gets us all killed? Shouted the delegate from Australia. Captain Yoon raised his hand for attention. With respect, we don't know what we're truly capable of until we're tested. The aliens seem to think we have something special to offer. Maybe they see something in us that we don't see in ourselves. Dr. Kim returned to the podium. I'd like to add something to Captain Yoon's point. In studying the alien message, we've learned that the Alliance species are highly organized and logical. They follow rules and traditions that have kept them peaceful for millennia. But perhaps that same organization makes them predictable to their enemies. What are you suggesting? President Jin Ho asked. Humans are different, Kim explained. We're chaotic, unpredictable, and creative. We solve problems in ways that don't follow traditional logic. Maybe that's exactly what the Alliance needs to defeat an enemy they can't overcome alone. The assembly hall grew quiet as delegates considered this idea. The thought that humanity's greatest weakness might actually be their greatest strength was both frightening and inspiring. President Jin Ho looked around the room at faces from every corner of Earth. Despite their different backgrounds and beliefs, he saw the same expression on each face. Determination mixed with fear, but determination nonetheless. Before we vote, Jin Ho said, I want to remind everyone what this decision means. If we choose to help the Alliance, we're not just risking our own lives. We're taking humanity's first steps toward becoming part of a galactic community. We're choosing to stand up against something that destroys entire civilizations." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But if we choose to hide, we may survive a little longer, but we'll always wonder if we could have made a difference. We'll always wonder if we missed our chance to prove that humanity belongs among the stars." The vote was taken electronically, with results displayed instantly on the main screen. As the numbers appeared, a collective gasp filled the assembly hall. The decision was unanimous. Every single delegate had voted to answer the call. President Jin Ho felt tears in his eyes as he realized what had just happened. In the face of impossible odds and terrifying enemies, humanity had chosen to help, strangers they had never met. "Captain Yoon," Jin Ho said, "prepare the Indomitable for departure. Humanity is going to war." Captain Taemin Yoon gripped the armrests of his command chair as the Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace. Through the main view screen, he saw something that took his breath away. A massive space station floated before them, bigger than any city on Earth. The structure looked ancient but beautiful, with flowing curves and towers that spiraled toward the stars. "My God," whispered Engineer Haewon Chang from her position at the console. "It's enormous. How many people live on that thing?" Communications specialist Mi Kyung Shin checked her readings. "Captain, I'm detecting millions of life signs aboard the station. And they're not all the same species. The computer is identifying at least 30 different biological patterns." Dr. Young-Soo Nam, the ship's medical officer, looked up from his scanner. "Sir, some of these readings don't match any life forms in our database. We're looking at truly alien biology." Captain Yoon nodded to his crew. They had spent 2 weeks traveling to these coordinates, following the path given in the alien message. Earth's best scientists had worked around the clock to prepare the Indomitable for this mission. Now they were about to make first contact with an entire alliance of alien civilizations. "Mi Kyung, open a communication channel," Yoon ordered. "Let's announce ourselves." Before Mi Kyung could respond, her console lit up with incoming signals. A voice spoke through the ship's speakers using perfect English with only a slight accent. "Human vessel Indomitable, this is Sanctuary Station. We have been expecting you. Please follow the guidance beacons to Docking Bay 7. The crew exchanged amazed looks. The aliens had been monitoring Earth's communications and had learned their language. As the Indomitable approached the docking bay, Admiral Jae-sung Han joined Captain Yoon on the bridge. Han was Earth's most experienced diplomat, chosen to lead the first contact team. His job was to represent all of humanity in these historic negotiations. "Are you ready for this, Admiral?" Yoon asked. Han smiled nervously. "Nobody can be ready for something like this, but I'll do my best to make humanity proud." The ship docked with a gentle bump. Through the airlock window they could see a welcoming committee waiting for them. The beings looked humanoid, but were clearly not from Earth. They were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like metal in the station's lights. Admiral Han led the contact team through the airlock. The artificial gravity felt slightly different and the air had a sweet smell that reminded him of flowers. The alien leader stepped forward, moving with fluid grace. "Welcome to Sanctuary Station," the being said. "I am Council Leader Veltar, of the Altine Republic. We represent the Alliance of Peaceful Worlds." Han bowed respectfully. "I am Admiral Jae-sung Han, representing the people of Earth. We received your message and came to offer whatever help we can provide." Veltar's large eyes showed surprise. "You came to help us, but you are such a young species, we expected you to ask us for protection." "Our species has a saying," Han replied. "When someone calls for help, you answer. It doesn't matter who they are or how dangerous it might be." The alien leader was quiet for a moment, studying the human delegation. Then he gestured for them to follow him deeper into the station. As they walked through the corridors, the humans saw incredible sights. Beings from dozens of different worlds worked together in harmony. Some looked like plants that could walk and talk. Others resembled geometric shapes made of living crystal. Despite their differences, they all seemed peaceful and intelligent. "This station houses refugees from over 40 worlds," Veltar explained as they walked. "All of our planets have been destroyed by the Devourers. We are all that remains of Our civilizations. They entered a massive chamber filled with floating holographic displays. Each display showed a different star system, most marked with red symbols. These are the worlds we have lost, Veltar said sadly. The Devourers consume everything. They take the energy of entire planets and use it to grow stronger. Nothing we have tried can stop them. Captain Yoon studied the tactical displays. What kind of weapons do they use? That is the problem, replied another alien who looked like a walking tree. They do not use weapons as we understand them. They are like a living storm that devours everything in its path. Our fleets fire upon them, but they simply absorb the energy and become more powerful. Engineer Haiwan Chang raised her hand. What about their ships? Do they have technology we can study? They do not use ships, Veltar answered. They are the ships. Each devourer is a living creature the size of a small moon. They travel through space by consuming the energy of stars. The humans exchanged worried glances. They had expected to fight an enemy with weapons and spacecraft, not living monsters that ate planets. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed as the peaceful atmosphere turned to panic. The Devourers have found us, Veltar announced. All beings must evacuate to the escape pods immediately. Through the chamber's windows, the humans saw something that made their blood run cold. A massive shadow was approaching the station, blotting out the stars. The thing was alive, pulsing with dark energy that seemed to eat light itself. How long do we have? Admiral Han asked. Perhaps 10 minutes before they reach us, Veltar replied. We must abandon the station. But Captain Yoon was already running toward the docking bay. Admiral, get everyone back to the ship, we're not running. Captain, what are you doing? Han called after him. Something crazy, Yoon replied. Something human. Back aboard the Indomitable, Yoon took command of the bridge while the alien refugees evacuated in their escape pods. The massive devourer was getting closer, its tentacles reaching out to grab the station. Haiwan, can you overload our fusion reactor? Yoon asked. The engineer's eyes went wide. Sir, that would destroy the ship and everything within 1,000 kilometers. Exactly, Yoon said grimly. Mi-kyung, broadcast this message to all the escape pods. Humanity stands with the Alliance. Dr. Nam grabbed the captain's arm. Tae-min, there has to be another way. But before Yoon could respond, something unexpected happened. The devourer stopped moving toward the station. Its massive form writhed as if in pain, and its tentacles pulled back from the refugees' escape pods. What's happening? Haiwan asked, checking her instruments. Mi-kyung looked up from her console in amazement. Captain, the devourer is retreating. It's actually running away from us. Through the view screen they watched as the massive creature turned and fled into deep space, disappearing as quickly as it had arrived. Admiral Han's voice came over the communication system from one of the escape pods. Captain Yoon, what did you do? I have no idea, Yoon replied honestly. But whatever it was, it worked. Hours later, after the refugees had returned to the station, Council Leader Veltar met with the human team in the main conference room. His expression showed a mixture of awe and confusion. In 300 years of fighting the Devourers, we have never seen one retreat, he said. They fear nothing and consume everything. But today it fled from your ship. Why do you think that happened? Admiral Han asked. Veltar studied the humans carefully. We believe it sensed something in your species that it could not understand or consume, something chaotic and unpredictable. Captain Yoon leaned forward. You mean it was afraid of us? Not afraid, Veltar corrected. Confused. The Devourers operate on pure logic and efficiency. They cannot process true creativity or individual courage. When you chose to stay and fight instead of fleeing like every other species does, it could not understand your behavior. Engineer Haiwan Chang smiled. So our craziness is actually a weapon? Perhaps, Veltar replied. Perhaps it is exactly the weapon we have been searching for. As the meeting continued, Admiral Han realized that humanity's first contact with alien life had revealed something important. The very qualities that made humans seem chaotic and unpredictable to other species might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. The war against the Devourers was far from over, but for the first time in centuries the Alliance had hope. Dr. Yoonji Lee stared at the holographic display floating above the research table. For 2 weeks she had been working with Alliance scientists to understand the Devourers. What she had learned kept her awake at night. The research facility was built inside an asteroid, hidden from enemy detection. Scientists from dozens of worlds worked together in the cramped laboratories, sharing knowledge that had taken centuries to gather. "Show me the feeding process again," Yoonji asked her research partner, a crystal-like being named Keth Ral. The hologram shifted to show a peaceful planet with blue oceans and green continents. Then the Devourer arrived, a massive creature that looked like a living storm of dark energy. As it descended toward the planet, tentacles of shadow reached out to touch the surface. "Watch closely," Kethral said in his musical voice. "The Devourer does not simply destroy. It consumes the essence of life itself." Yoonji watched in horror as the planet's colors drained away. The blue oceans turned gray. The green forests became dust and the white clouds disappeared into nothing. But the worst part was seeing the cities go dark as millions of lives were absorbed into the creature's mass. "It's not just eating the physical matter," Yoonji realized. "It's consuming their thoughts, their memories, their entire civilization." "Correct," Kethral replied sadly. "Every being the Devourers consume becomes part of their collective consciousness. They grow not just in size, but in knowledge and intelligence." Commander So-Young Park entered the laboratory, her military uniform looking out of place among the scientific equipment. She had arrived from Earth the day before with additional human researchers and military advisors. "Dr. Lee, we need your analysis for the War Council meeting," Park said. "The Alliance commanders want to know if we've found any weaknesses." Yoonji sighed and rubbed her tired eyes. "Commander, I'm not sure the Devourers have weaknesses in any traditional sense. They're not machines we can break or armies we can defeat. They're something completely different." She activated another hologram showing the internal structure of a Devourer. The creature looked like a massive brain surrounded by layers of living tissue and energy. Each Devourer is essentially a collective mind made up of billions of consumed beings, Yoonji explained. They share thoughts and experiences instantly across vast distances. They operate with perfect efficiency because they think as one unified intelligence. Commander Park studied the display. But that unity must have limitations. Even the most advanced computer can be overloaded with too much information. "That's what we thought," Kethral interjected. "But the Devourers have been growing for millennia. They process information at speeds we cannot comprehend." Dr. Young-Soo Nam entered the laboratory carrying a medical scanner and data tablet. He had been studying biological samples from destroyed worlds, trying to understand how the Devourers affected living tissue. "I think I found something interesting," Nam announced. "The Devourers leave behind a specific type of energy residue when they feed. But when I exposed this residue to human brain tissue samples, something unexpected happened." He activated his scanner, showing wave patterns on the display. Human neural activity creates interference with the Devourer energy. Our brain chemistry produces patterns they can't process effectively. Yoonji leaned forward with interest. "What kind of patterns?" "Chaos patterns," Nam replied. "Human brains don't operate on pure logic like most other species. We process emotions, creativity, and random thoughts simultaneously. This creates electrical patterns that seem to disrupt the Devourer's psychic connections." Commander Park's eyes lit up with understanding. "You're saying human thoughts can jam their communication?" "It's more than that," Nam continued. "When a human mind is under stress, particularly the kind of stress that comes from protecting others, our brain chemistry produces unique neural spikes. These spikes seem to cause actual pain to the Devourers." Kethral's crystalline body flickered with excitement. "This explains why the Devourer retreated from your ship at Sanctuary Station. Captain Yoon's willingness to sacrifice himself created the exact type of neural pattern that causes them distress." Yunji began pacing around the laboratory, her mind racing with possibilities. If human brain patterns can disrupt their collective consciousness, then maybe we can use that as a weapon. But how? Park asked. We can't exactly shoot our thoughts at them. Dr. Nam pulled up another display showing Alliance battle records. Commander, look at these tactical analyses. Every time the Alliance forces fight the Devourers, they follow predictable patterns. Organized retreats, coordinated attacks, logical battle formations. That's how military operations are supposed to work, Park replied. But the Devourers can predict every move because they operate on perfect logic, Nam explained. They know what the Alliance will do before the Alliance does it. That's why they always win. Yunji stopped pacing and turned to face the group. Unless we give them something they can't predict. Something chaotic and illogical. She activated the holographic display and began drawing tactical diagrams in the air with her finger. What if we don't fight them like a traditional military? What if we fight them like humans? Meaning what exactly? Park asked. Meaning we embrace our chaos, Yunji replied excitedly. We use our unpredictability as a weapon. Instead of organized formations, we use scattered individual units. Instead of logical strategies, we use intuition and creativity. Instead of following orders, we encourage independent thinking. Kethral's crystalline form dimmed with concern. But such tactics would be incredibly dangerous. Without coordination, your forces could accidentally destroy each other. Commander Park smiled grimly. That's a risk humans have been taking for thousands of years. We've been fighting chaotic battles since we lived in caves. The difference is we've gotten very good at it. Nam nodded in agreement. The key is that we're chaotic but not random. We can work together without thinking exactly alike. We cooperate while maintaining individual creativity. That's it exactly, Yunji said. The Devourers understand perfect unity or complete chaos, but they can't comprehend organized chaos, the ability to work together while thinking differently. The research team spent the next several hours developing their theory. They analyzed battle records, studied Devourer behavior patterns, and tested their ideas against Alliance tactical databases. As they worked, a clearer picture emerged of what made humans unique in the galaxy. Other species had achieved peace through unity of thought and purpose. They had eliminated conflict by eliminating disagreement. Their strength came from thinking and acting as one mind. But humans had achieved cooperation without losing individuality. They could work together while maintaining different opinions, different approaches, and different solutions to the same problem. Their strength came from diversity of thought combined with shared purpose. The Alliance species see chaos as something to be eliminated, Yunji concluded. Humans see chaos as something to be managed and directed. That's why we can use unpredictability as a tool while other species cannot. Commander Park stood and gathered the research data onto her tablet. I need to present this to the War Council immediately. If we're right about this, it could change everything about how we fight the Devourers. As Park left for the meeting, Dr. Nam turned to Yunji with a worried expression. Do you really think this will work? Can human chaos actually defeat an enemy that has conquered hundreds of worlds? Yunji looked at the holographic display showing the vast territory controlled by the Devourers. Thousands of star systems marked in red, representing civilizations that no longer existed. I don't know if it will work, she admitted, but I know that everything else has failed. Maybe it's time to try something completely different. Kethral's crystal form pulsed with what might have been hope. Your species continues to surprise us, Dr. Lee. Perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs. A species that cannot be predicted or understood, even by themselves. As the research team returned to their work, none of them knew that their theories were about to be tested in the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Devourers were massing for a final assault on the remaining Alliance worlds, but for the first time in centuries, the Alliance would not face them alone. And for the first time ever, they would fight using weapons the Devourers could never understand: human courage, creativity, and chaos. Captain Tae Min Yoon stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship Harmony, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for battle. Over 10,000 ships from 40 different worlds had gathered at the edge of the Kepler sector. This would be their last chance to stop the Devourers before they consumed the remaining Alliance worlds. But this battle would be different from all the others. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Alliance would fight using human military. Tactics, Captain. Incoming transmission from Admiral Han, reported communications specialist Mi-Kyung Shin from her position at the sensor array. Admiral Jae Sung Han appeared on the main view screen, broadcasting from the Alliance Command Center. Behind him, alien military leaders from dozens of species worked alongside human advisors, planning the most desperate battle of their lives. Captain Yoon, are your human advisors in position with the fleet commanders? Han asked. Yes, sir, Yoon replied. We have human officers aboard 350 Alliance vessels. They're ready to implement Operation Chaos Storm. Operation Chaos Storm was humanity's gift to the Alliance military, a battle strategy based on controlled unpredictability. Instead of the traditional coordinated formations that the Devourers could predict and counter, the fleet would operate as independent units following general objectives rather than specific orders. Engineer Hai Wan Chang looked up from her console. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from the Void Zone. The Devourers are almost here. Through the view screen, they could see space itself beginning to darken as the enemy approached. 5 enormous Devourers, each the size of a small moon, emerged from hyperspace. They moved like living shadows, consuming the light of nearby stars as they advanced. All units, this is Admiral Han, came the broadcast across the fleet. Remember your training. Trust your instincts. Fight like humans. Think like humans. Act like humans. Today we show the galaxy what chaos can accomplish. Sergeant Mi-Kyung Shin had spent the last month teaching Alliance communication officers something humans called battlefield improvisation. Instead of rigid command structures, she had trained them to adapt their orders in real time based on changing conditions. Attention all ships, Mi-Kyung broadcast. Enemy contact in 30 seconds. Execute Plan Alpha, but remember, if you see a better option, take it. Trust your gut feelings. The concept of gut feelings had been difficult for Alliance species to understand. They were used to making decisions based on careful analysis and logical consideration. The idea of trusting instincts and emotions was completely foreign to their way of thinking, but the human advisors had spent weeks teaching them that sometimes the best decisions came from the heart rather than the head. The Devourers reached the fleet's position and immediately began their standard attack pattern. Massive tentacles of dark energy lashed out toward the Alliance ships, expecting them to respond with coordinated defensive formations. Instead, the Alliance fleet scattered in all directions like a school of fish avoiding a predator. Ships that should have stayed in formation broke away to attack from unexpected angles. Vessels that should have retreated instead charged directly at the enemy. To any outside observer, it looked like complete chaos, but Captain Yoon could see the hidden pattern beneath the apparent madness. The human advisors were coordinating the chaos, turning random actions into a devastating tactical advantage. The lead Devourer is confused, reported Haiwan from her sensor station. Its attack patterns are becoming erratic. On the view screen, they could see the massive creature writhing in apparent distress. Its tentacles lashed out randomly instead of following precise targeting algorithms. For the first time in recorded history, a Devourer was acting unpredictably. It's working, whispered Dr. Young-Soo Nam from the medical station. The chaotic attack patterns are disrupting its collective consciousness. But the battle was far from over. The other 4 Devourers began to adapt, trying to counter the new human tactics. They started targeting individual ships instead of formations, hoping to eliminate the sources of chaos. That's when Captain Yoon implemented the second phase of the human strategy. Mi-Kyung broadcast the rally code to all human advisors. He ordered. The rally code was based on an ancient human military principle: never leave a comrade behind. When any ship in the fleet was in danger, nearby vessels would immediately move to protect it, regardless of their original orders or mission assignments. The effect on the Alliance crews was dramatic. Species that had spent millennia avoiding unnecessary risks suddenly found themselves charging into danger to save strangers. Ships that barely knew each other began working together like family members. Engineer Heiwan Chang had spent months teaching Alliance engineers something humans called creative problem solving. Instead of following technical manuals exactly, she had trained them to improvise solutions using whatever materials were available. "Hey one to all engineering team," she broadcast. "Time to get creative. Make your weapons do things they were never designed to do." Across the fleet, Alliance engineers began modifying their weapons in real time. Energy cannons designed for precision shooting were overloaded to create area effect weapons. Shield generators were reversed to create energy pulses. Even communication arrays were turned into improvised weapons. The Devourers had never faced enemies who changed their technology. During battle, they could not predict or counter weapons that operated outside normal design parameters. Dr. Nam watched the medical readouts from across the fleet and noticed something remarkable. The stress of battle was causing Alliance crews to produce the same neural patterns that humans generated under extreme conditions. The chaos of human-style warfare was literally changing how their brains worked. "Captain, the Alliance crews are starting to think like humans," Nam reported. "Their neural patterns are becoming more chaotic and unpredictable." "Is that good or bad?" Yoon asked. "It's exactly what we need," Nam replied. "The more unpredictable they become, the more difficulty the Devourers have processing their actions." The battle continued for 6 hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Devourers were powerful beyond imagination, but they could not adapt to the constantly changing human tactics. Every time they developed a counter-strategy, the Alliance fleet would switch to a completely different approach. But the human strategy had one final element that no one had told the Alliance commanders about. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Han opened a private channel to all the human advisors scattered throughout the fleet. "All human personnel, this is Admiral Han. You know what needs to be done. It's been an honor serving with you." Captain Yoon felt his heart sink as he realized what the Admiral was planning. The final element of human military strategy was the willingness to sacrifice oneself for the mission. One by one, human advisors began volunteering for suicide missions. They piloted damaged ships directly into Devourer tentacles. They overloaded reactor cores to create massive explosions. They stayed behind to buy time for Alliance vessels to escape, but something unexpected happened. Instead of accepting the human sacrifices, the Alliance crews began making the same choice. Alien officers who had never risked their lives for others suddenly found themselves volunteering for the most dangerous assignments. "No human fights alone," broadcast an Alliance captain whose species had been peaceful for 1,000 years. "If you're willing to die for us, then we're willing to die with you." The effect on the Devourers was catastrophic. Their collective consciousness could not process the concept of beings choosing to sacrifice themselves for others. The sheer illogic of it caused their mental networks to overload and fail. One by one, the massive creatures began to retreat, fleeing back into the void from which they had come. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Alliance had won a decisive victory against the Devourers. As the cheers of 10,000 crews echoed across the communication channels, Captain Yoon realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The Alliance species had learned to fight like humans, but more importantly, they had learned to think like humans. "Captain," Mi Kyung reported, "Admiral Han is requesting all senior staff report to the flagship for debrief." As the Indomitable docked with the Harmony, Yoon reflected on what they had accomplished. They had not just won a battle. They had taught an entire galactic civilization that chaos could be a force for good, that unpredictability could be a weapon, and that sometimes the most logical thing to do was to act illogically. The war against the Devourers was not over, but for the first time since it began, the Alliance was winning, and they were winning by learning to be human. Admiral Jae-sung Han stood at the observation deck of the massive Alliance battleship Unity, staring into the absolute darkness at the edge of known space. Behind him stretched the largest fleet ever assembled, over 50,000 ships from every world in the Alliance, with humans serving as advisors on each vessel. 3 months had passed since their victory at the Kepler sector. The Alliance had won several more battles using human tactics, but the Devourers kept retreating deeper into the void. Now they had traced the enemy back to their source, a region of space so dark that no light escaped from it. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim joined Han at the observation window, carrying data tablets filled with sensor readings. He had traveled from Earth to help with the final mission, bringing new technology that might end the war forever. "Admiral, our long-range scanners are detecting something massive at the center of the void zone," Kim reported. "It appears to be some kind of artificial construct roughly the size of Earth's moon." "A space station?" Han asked. "More like a machine," Kim replied. "Our analysis suggests it's designed to consume the energy of entire star systems and convert that energy into new devourers." Captain Tae-min Yoon approached from the command center, his expression grim. "Admiral, we've completed our reconnaissance missions. The void zone contains over 100 devourers, all surrounding this central construct. They're preparing for some kind of massive operation." Han studied the tactical displays showing the enemy positions. The Devourers had formed a perfect sphere around their base with no gaps or weak points in their formation. "What kind of operation?" Han asked. "According to our intelligence," Yoon replied, "they're planning to consume our entire galaxy. The construct is some kind of superweapon designed to drain the energy from every star in the Milky Way simultaneously." The implications were terrifying. If the Devourers succeeded, every world in the galaxy would die at the same moment, providing enough energy to create thousands of new Devourers. Dr. Yoon-ji Lee entered the observation deck, accompanied by Lieutenant Colonel Bo-ra Kim and Engineer Hai-Wan Chang. They had spent weeks studying captured Devourer technology, trying to understand how the creatures really worked. "Admiral, I think we found something important," Yoon-ji announced. "The Devourers aren't evil in the way we understand evil. They're trapped." "Trapped how?" Han asked. Lee activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of a Devourer. Each creature contains the consciousness of billions of consumed beings. But those minds aren't destroyed. They're imprisoned inside a collective intelligence that forces them to act against their will. "You mean the Devourers are victims too?" Yoon asked in surprise. "Exactly," Lee replied. "The original Devourer species became so efficient at survival that they lost their individual identities. They became trapped in a hive mind that forces them to consume everything they encounter." Lieutenant Colonel Bo-ra Kim stepped forward with her own data. "Ma'am, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. The Devourers don't want to destroy other civilizations. They're compelled to do it by their collective programming. They literally can't stop themselves." Engineer Hai-Wan Chang nodded in agreement. "I've been working on a possible solution. If we can disrupt their hive-mind connection, we might be able to free the individual consciousnesses trapped inside." Admiral Han considered this information carefully. The Alliance fleet had come here expecting to fight a final battle against an implacable enemy. Instead, they had discovered that their enemies were prisoners who needed to be rescued. "What would it take to free them?" Han asked. "We'd need to plant chaos seeds throughout their collective network," Chang explained. "Devices that introduce random elements into their shared consciousness, giving the trapped minds a chance to assert their individuality." "And where would we get these chaos seeds?" Han asked. Dr. Kim smiled and held up a small device about the size of a coin. "We brought them with us. Each seed contains a compressed recording of human neural patterns, the kind of chaotic thought processes that the Devourers can't understand or control. But someone would have to get inside the central construct to plant them," Yoon pointed out. "That's a suicide mission." "Not necessarily," Lieutenant Colonel Bo-ra Kim replied. "I've been studying the construct's defenses. They're designed to stop organized attacks and logical assault patterns, but they might not be able to handle a small team using human infiltration tactics." Admiral Han looked around at his senior staff. These people had traveled across the galaxy to answer a call for help from strangers. Now they were proposing to risk their lives to save their enemies. "This is completely insane," Han said quietly. Yes, sir, Yoon replied with a grin. It's the most human plan possible. The infiltration mission launched 12 hours later. Lieutenant Colonel Bo-Ra Kim led a team of 50 volunteers, including representatives from every Alliance species. They flew small stealth ships through the Devourer formation, using unpredictable flight patterns that confused the enemy sensors. Meanwhile, the main fleet began what appeared to be a traditional frontal assault on the Devourer positions. The enemy responded exactly as expected, focusing all their attention on the obvious threat while ignoring the small infiltration team. Bo-Ra's team reached the central construct and began planting chaos seeds throughout its massive structure. Each device they installed sent random neural patterns into the Devourer network, creating tiny pockets of individual thought within the collective consciousness. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The construct continued its preparations to drain the galaxy, and the Devourers continued their defensive formations. Then Engineer Chang's voice crackled over the communication system. Admiral, I'm reading massive fluctuations in the Devourer network. The chaos seeds are working. Through the fleet's sensors, they could see the effects spreading through the enemy formation. Individual Devourers began breaking away from their positions, moving erratically as suppressed minds fought for control of their bodies. The central construct began to shudder and pulse as millions of trapped consciousnesses suddenly remembered who they had been before being consumed. The machine that was designed to destroy the galaxy began tearing itself apart from within, but the most remarkable thing happened next. Instead of destroying the freed Devourers, the Alliance fleet began broadcasting messages of welcome and forgiveness. Ships that had come to fight a war began offering medical aid and assistance to their former enemies. Dr. Young-Soo Nam coordinated the relief efforts as freed beings emerged from the dissolving Devourer forms. Many were species that had been thought extinct for centuries. Others were completely unknown, representing civilizations that had been consumed before the Alliance even existed. The central construct finally collapsed in on itself, its energy dissipating harmlessly into space. The superweapon that could have destroyed the galaxy became nothing more than scattered debris. Admiral Han received reports from across the fleet as the situation stabilized. Over 1 million beings had been freed from the Devourer collective, representing hundreds of different species and thousands of lost worlds. Admiral, Captain Yoon reported, the former Devourers are requesting permission to join the Alliance. They want to help rebuild the civilizations they were forced to destroy. Han smiled as he looked out at the rescued beings floating in the void, being brought aboard Alliance medical ships. What had started as a war had become the largest rescue operation in galactic history. 6 months later, Admiral Han stood before the newly expanded Galactic Council on the rebuilt station that was once called Sanctuary. Representatives from over 300 worlds filled the Great Assembly Hall, including many species that had been thought extinct. President Jin Ho Choi had traveled from Earth to witness the historic moment as the Alliance formally became the Galactic Federation, with humans serving as mediators between the countless different civilizations now working together. We came to answer a call for help from strangers. Han addressed the assembly. We never expected to discover that our greatest enemies were actually victims who needed saving. The hall erupted in applause from beings of every shape and size imaginable. Former Devourers sat alongside their former victims, working together to rebuild what had been lost. Species that had been extinct for millennia were sharing technology with civilizations they had never met. Dr. Hyun-Woo Kim, now serving as the Federation's Director of Interspecies Communication, stepped forward to present the final report on the mission. The chaos seeds we planted didn't just free individual minds, he explained to the assembly. They proved that diversity of thought is the strongest force in the universe. When beings are forced to think alike, they become weak and predictable. But when different minds work together while maintaining their individuality, they become unstoppable. Commander So Young Park, now promoted to Admiral and serving as the Federation's military coordinator, added her own observations. The former Devourers have taught us something important about ourselves. They became trapped because they achieved perfect efficiency and lost their ability to choose. Humans remained free because we never stopped being chaotic, creative, and unpredictable. Captain. Yoon, standing with his mixed crew of humans and aliens, raised his hand to address the council. The Mo,